now.
Hello. Oh, thank you all so much for joining me. My name is Rose, as Charlie said, and welcome to the Empathy Experiment 2.0, or the Empathy Experiment Revisited, or the Empathy Experiment, the Retraction. I haven't decided yet. So you might be asking yourselves a question. Rose, didn't you already do this experiment? Yes, I did. In 2019, I created a solo spoken word theater show called The Empathy Experiment. Thank you, Arts Council funding. And I collaborated with some amazing artists to create the show. And I packed all of my props into this red case, ready to pop up in any venue. Me and my red case did the show in a bunch of places. Maybe some of you saw it. If not, here's the gist. So I had this idea that empathy was facing extinction because we're all so addicted to our mobile devices. So I thought one way to address this would be to get an International Day of No Mobile Devices declared. So to build my case for how this could save empathy, I thought I'll do my own 24-hour phone-free experiment, and the show will be the final hour of that. And I'll have the audience join me, and I'll ask them to hand over their phones for the hour-long performance. And so in the show, I went through the steps of my experiment, and I discovered that my premise had failed because phones aren't all bad. And I suggested we could just try and be a little bit more aware of our phone use. And I used some poems for this. And I created the show hoping that it would resonate for people. And it kind of did. It was like the board game Operation, hitting nerves for people of all ages. The Empathy Experiment won an award, and it was a success at the Edinburgh Fringe, getting lots of great reviews. And it's published in my first poetry collection with Flapjack Press. I mean, this was all phenomenal and totally exceeded any of my expectations. And in 2021, I had tour dates booked in exotic places like Oldham Library and Wigan and Sheffield and Doncaster and the south of France. Me and my red case were primed to perform all over. And then, well, we're all a bit sick of the word pandemic, aren't we? I know I am. Some people have been using alternative words starting with P in its place. And so thanks to you guys and what you've written in the Zoom chat, I wrote down all of your suggestions and I've put them in here and I've got them to use. So thanks for that. So paper. Okay, so the show was on a roll and then the paper hit. And the paper meant that all live performances in all places were put on pause. I did a Zoom performance of the original show last summer, but otherwise it's been packed away in this case for months and in my brain. And as things change with the paper, theaters are getting in touch to try to rebook these tour dates. And I'm thinking, great, maybe the Empathy Experiment could go back on the road and I can go back to sharing the live show with audiences. Except when I looked at the script and thought about it a little bit, I realized the show doesn't work anymore. And I kind of got a bunch of things wrong. Yeah. What do I mean? Well, I'm not actually totally sure yet. I mean, I haven't done the show live since February of 2020, but I can't, I mean, pentameter. During the pentameter, I had some time to learn a bit of ukulele. And so I've been thinking about like other examples of when things kind of worked for a while and then didn't anymore. And so I wrote a song about kind of digging into this idea of getting things wrong. Okay, so here goes. Sometimes we get a great idea when inspiration strikes. We want to share it with the world and we think it might change hearts and minds. Its impact on our lives could be quite strong. But sometimes, with the best of intentions, we get things completely wrong. Like hypercolor t-shirts, early 90s were the rage. The shirt changed color with body heat, so many poor teenaged bodies had big colored patches where bodies like to sweat. Who thought this was what hormonal teenagers should get? Their marketing was genius. I wore mine to belong, but I still recall the trauma. They got that really wrong, but it's okay. Some things don't always go the way we planned. I understand. But if we own up, admit and face the fact that we were way off base, be brave and say we got it wrong, then maybe we can better get along. Now in the mix, I'd like to add the TV sitcom Friends. I remember when this show exploded as a trend. Back then, I wished that I could join the gang at Central Perk. But now I think the characters are all a bunch of jerks. Plus, looking back, there is the lack of much diversity. And it's full of fat shaming and misogyny. Thanks to Netflix and Primark, the brand still gets prolonged. But could it be any more obvious? They got some things really wrong. But it's okay. Some things don't always go the way we planned. I understand. But if we own up, admit and face the fact that we were way off base, be brave and say we got it wrong, then maybe we can better get along. There are other examples of things that missed the mark. The way Game of Thrones ended, the Euro Disney Park, those who believe the earth is flat, Pitch Perfect 2 and 3, and my spoken word experiment in empathy. It doesn't mean that those of us who made these things were bad. There were some good things in the heydays that they had. But let's hold our hands up with courage to admit our creations weren't perfect. We kind of stepped in it, but it's okay. Some things don't always go the way we planned. I understand. But if we own up, admit and face the fact that we were way off base, be brave and say we got it wrong, then maybe we can better get along. Okay, so what did I get wrong in the empathy experiment that makes me think that that version of the show doesn't work anymore? I made some pretty big assumptions, like suggesting that if someone is on their phone a lot, that automatically means that they don't have any empathy, or like thinking that having a global phone-free day would be helpful for everyone, regardless of access need or disability or security. I don't even feel right proposing the idea of a phone-free day. The viral videos that we've seen over the past year, and I don't just mean YouTube videos of dogs jumping over piles of loo roll, but like videos of violence and protests, people bearing witness to these atrocities by recording them on their phones. If these people bearing witness had been doing a phone-free day because some worthy poet had said, put it away. And so the idea of dusting off my case and dusting off my show and presenting research about empathy and mobile addiction now, with everything, parcel. In the early days of the parcel, I filled my time with a lot of YouTube videos. I watched a lot of videos of dogs jumping over big piles of loo roll. And I also kind of got into watching unboxing videos, but not the kind of tech gadget unboxing videos. I came across a podcaster called Dylan Marin, not to be confused with the Irish comedian Dylan Moran. Dylan Marin did this great TED Talk called Empathy is Not Endorsement. And through that, I found out that he had done all of these unboxing videos where he kind of digs into intangible ideologies like ableism and privilege and unboxes assumptions and unpacks misconceptions about them. So what if I try unboxing my show? Like if I look at the stuff in my red case now after the many months of the parcel and see if that helps me figure out what doesn't work and what I got wrong. Okay. Here goes. Oh gosh. Bag of stuff, scissors and glue tack, and this is some of my research, I think. Oh, these are the envelopes that I use to collect people's phones. Loads of those. What's in here? Some Fringe flyers. Don't need those anymore. Oh, my costume. Ooh, still smells a bit like pub. Ooh. My lab coat. Yeah, I wore a lab coat in the original show. Made it an official experiment. Oh, my shoes. The shoes that I wore in the show. Oh, and my charts. Yes, I had charts for all of the steps of my experiment. Let's see, step 1 was observation. Step 2, formulate question. Ooh, can I remember what the original question was? If I put away my devices for one day each year, will I increase my ability to understand and share the feelings of others? So like, if I put my phone away one day each year, will I increase my empathy? If everyone in the world puts their phone away one day each year, I mean, that just, it doesn't feel like it scans anymore. I think of all the days over the past year where my phone was like a lifeline, like checking case numbers and finding out about vaccines, but also like trying to do workout videos with my sister. I mean, we actually did a lot of videos where we drank gin as well, but like, you know, chatting with my family and friends in Canada, and did weekly quiz nights with my partner's family who don't live that far away, but we had to be on video, and I played a lot of Among Us with my coworkers. I was always sus as well, by the way. I always got killed in that video game. So, I mean, I don't even know what my experiment question would be now. It says, could you survive for one day without your phone? I wrote this in Sharpie. I wore this every day of the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, rain or shine, handing out flyers to people near my venue. Free 4-star spoken word show. Which could you survive without your phone for a day? Free 4-star spoken word show. Could you survive without your phone for a day? I mean, the looks that I got. But people came to the show. They packed into my little venue. They said that it really affected them. There was so much connection. You know that saying, you can't stand in the same river twice, meaning that things constantly flow forward and change and move on. And sometimes I wish that I could just take a few scoops of water out of the flow of a particular moment and just make a bit of a puddle that I could stand in for a little while when everything is working and going well, and just stay there for a little bit. But standing in a puddle doesn't work. I mean, the water goes stagnant and starts to attract flies and evaporates. I want to stand in that Edinburgh Fringe puddle again. This show was one of the things that I have worked the hardest on and have been the proudest of. But it can't look like it did anymore, and that really sucks. I mean, is there anything in here that I can keep? Oh, my books, yeah, my research. Do these, wonder if these still ring true. This is the Empathy Effect by Helen Reese. Made a bunch of notes. What did I underline on page 115? We are missing so much human information by having our emotions and intentions reduced to letters on a keyboard. Yeah, definitely. Although, like, even more so over the past few months, because we've only had keyboards and screens to communicate. Ooh, what about in Roman Krasnarek's book, Empathy, Why It Matters and How to Get It? Such a great title. What did I underline? Oh, on page 204, we need to become empathy gardeners, seeding millions of shoe swapping conversations in schoolrooms, boardrooms, and war rooms, in pubs, churches, kitchens, and online. And online. Trouble is, it's been only online for so long. Oh, my Mother Goose book. In the original show, I performed a poem called Mirror, Mirror from this book. I mean, it wasn't from this book. I printed it and I taped it in. I was pretty proud of this poem, actually. I thought it was quite funny and clever and on point. I even made a video of it and put it on YouTube. I remember I wrote Mirror, Mirror to explore empathy as a spectrum, because there are people in our midst who appear to have none. And so I thought about who best to illustrate this, and it became obvious and evident that the subject of this poem should be the now former American president. So I took on his voice and his movements, and Mirror, Mirror was born. But it's become a poem that I no longer want to perform. He's a person I no longer want to portray. I don't want to spend my creative energy that way. So rather than trying to rewrite this poem or this section, I wonder if I can explore mirrors in a different direction, because I've spent so much of the past year facing my own on-screen reflection. I mean, aside from using my mirror, lockdown was the case that never have I seen so much of my own face. Monitoring my on-screen movements and what I look like when I speak, and constantly fiddling and faffing and adjusting to tweak the camera angle to hide my roots or my gray hair or my red patches or my double chin, or the constant glare of the screen on my glasses, or the light or my background, or being on or off mute to manage my sound, expecting myself to appear from the waist up polished and attractive, and constantly showing that my listening is active. Working through noise to hear what's being uttered. This communication can feel overwhelming and cluttered. And a year into this, here I am, a year older, and sick of the sight of my head and my shoulders. And despite having faced my own face frequently from my own home, it occurs to me that I am very likely not alone in feeling like this. Whether it's a one-to-one chat or a Zoom meeting of 120, I reckon these feelings are really familiar to many. Along with the obligation to feel gratitude because they didn't have Zoom during the Spanish flu, I'm supposed to feel lucky for what video chats help us to achieve while navigating this very real thing called Zoom fatigue. As restrictions ease and friends can sit opposite me, we can chat in the flesh, and I won't have to see myself reflected back in a box in the corner of my screen, but rather be reflected back as I am seen in the faces of those who look on with affection. It's in these places I look forward to finding my own true reflection. So that is the red case cleared out. Poppy. During the Poppy, I made a lot of lists. It was a coping tool. Sort through stuff, clean the flat, clear out the flat. Not in a kind of home decor, I'm going to Instagram it kind of way, but more like I'm a 43-year-old restless, anxious sheepdog and I need to do stuff or I'll go bonkers kind of way. So I sorted out clothes that no longer fit thanks to the COVID curves. I tried to rearrange the spare room and I found that I have sciatica. And I tried to clear out my workspace and went through like notebooks and papers and documents. And that might sound boring, but actually I loved it. And I found stuff that I hadn't seen in years, like this. This is a letter that I found that I received in May of 2017, so 4 years ago. And I remember it had been an average weekday in the middle of May, and I'd arrived home, unlocked my door to my flat, and there on the floor of my flat, I see a folded piece of paper had been slipped under the crack. The sight of this odd thing took me aback. I have an ex who's a bit of a sociopath, and he sent me weird stuff in the past. So with a trembling hand, I reached down to pick up this note with a feeling of dread. And this is 100% true, is what the note said. Dear tenant, can you kindly remove the paper snowflake decorations from your front window? Please note that it is a breach of the lease to display anything in the windows of the property. Kind regards, the management. So, right, I guess you could say it was my oversight leaving up these offensive paper snowflakes from December until the middle of May, well beyond the festive traditional 12 days of a solstice-y mulled wine scented season. But the reason the management have written feels like the lamest of jokes. So I marched to the management's door, convinced it was a hoax. No, it's real, he stammered. I wrote it. He said the issue had been raised by the buildings committee, said that the complaint had been officially submitted, said displaying things in my window was not permitted. The average lifespan is, give or take, 70 years, which roughly equates to 25,550 days. And it is very possible to choose the ways that we engage with communication and compassion, seeking out ways to fashion our actions to address injustices, to combat oppression, to oppose inequality, to support self-expression. But as I peeled these provocative paper snowflakes from my window, I tried to surmise how this whimsy could cause such an assault on the eyes of someone whose sight seemed so set on despise. Someone whose life was perhaps so bland, so dull, so free from strife, that complaining about my paper snowflakes was how they chose to live their life. This was the battle that they chose to fight. This was the dragon that they chose to slay. This was the wrong they needed to right. Correcting my lease breach was their passageway to moral vindication by speaking to the committee. Well, rest well, citizens of all towns and cities. The scourge of outdated festive decor has been ripped from home windows. No more will your vision be plagued by such damnable scrap. No more will you have to suffer such impertinent crap. Oh, thank heavens. This action has saved us from enduring paper snowflakes on the window of a private residence in a northern English town, posted up by a Canadian who thought her nieces would enjoy them at Christmas and then forgot to take them down. Long live this committee reporting clown. As I folded my paper snowflakes into the recycling bin, I did wonder, with a grin and a smirk, if this jerk realizes that choosing to make the cantankerous decision to take such offense at my window decorations means that they are in fact the real snowflake. That was such an unwelcome exercise in empathy. Imagining what on earth had led that person to make that complaint. I never met them. I just had to imagine them. We never had a face-to-face encounter. I have really, really missed face-to-face. When everything shut down, another thing that I did was I sent a lot of letters and postcards covered in stickers and colored pictures, and I did weekly poetry sessions on Zoom with my nieces in London. And like, this was more stuff to keep me busy, but it was more than that. it was doing these things kind of gave me like a tangible way to show compassion and care. I mean, that's my jam. That is the jam in my sandwich. And I realized that in the absence of live gigs and visiting family and friends and being in groups, that those are the things that really nourish me. I need that creative connection. It helps to make fertile ground for empathy. And without those things, I worried that those parts of me would start to atrophy. And I'm so tired. I'm tired of missing things. And I'm tired of carrying such big emotions all the time, like the guilt that I have because I've stayed employed and I've stayed healthy, and knowing that there is so much grief and trauma going on in the world, and knowing that the world is facing this massive reckoning, and I worry that the world won't address the issues and injustices in the ways that it needs to. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but like we're going through this coming out of lockdown map, and I've been trying to reflect and absorb what happened, but getting hindsight is hard when I still feel so in the thick of it. I mean, I'm so appreciative to have not gotten sick from it. And I try to keep up a positive attitude. I try to find grace in moments of gratitude. But my go-to ways for not coming apart, like writing and performing and making art, all went on pause or online. And I try not to let my mental health decline. But there are moments in these lockdown days where I just want to chuck my phone away. Not in some attempt to prove that my phone isn't a crutch, but because the news of the world just sometimes feels all too much. I feel emptied of empathy and helpless and enraged. And like a bad human, if I don't stay engaged, I feel emptied of emotional space to take on headlines and images, but knowing that I can also step back because of my privileges feels just really shit. I can step back while others have no choice but to be caught up in the thick of it. And yeah, so it feels ludicrous to return to a live stage with the old version of my show. There is no way, with all of the grief and trauma of the last year. The last thing anybody wants to hear is me spouting data on mobile addiction. Plus, I've been living in contradiction to what my show originally claimed: use your phone less so empathy can be saved. All of this has made me reevaluate and rethink that phone use doesn't mean empathy is going extinct. It seems irrational and wrong to try to connect those two. So maybe I try exploring a new question. Maybe I can try and see how using my device can help encourage empathy. It was August last year. Yeah, August 2020, a year after I'd been at the Edinburgh Fringe. And I was sat here in my flat in Salford, and I was wanting so much to connect with people. So I picked up my phone and I typed in, just curious, how would you finish this sentence? This time next year, ... And I posted it on Facebook. Now, I didn't grow up watching Only Fools and Horses, so I had to ask my partner who the heck Rodney was and why people kept talking about being millionaires. But lots of people sent in lots of responses about being on holiday and hugs and thinking maybe this was just all a bad dream, but like lots of hope for good things. And when I was developing the original show, I did an actual online research survey that asked questions about empathy and phone use. And I wove so many of the responses that people gave into the original show. Like I'd asked people to define the word empathy, and so many people wrote shoes, as in being in someone else's shoes. And in every single performance of the live show, I swapped these shoes with a member of the audience. I had someone come and sit on stage with me, and they would put on my shoes and I'd put on theirs, and we'd just sit together for a few moments. It was such amazing connection. And like, I can't swap shoes with any of you at the moment, but I think I might have another idea for how we can connect just now. What do I mean? Well, just bear with me one moment while I share my screen. Okay, you should see a link for menti.com. This is a live digital survey that you can hop on. So you should see the link and then an 8-digit code. So for this, you could use your mobile phone, or you could use your laptop or your tablet to do this. So if you go to menti.com and type in the code digits. So I'm hoping this is something that you will all enjoy. I'll just give it a few moments for people to join. Now, please know that it is totally okay if you're using your phone to watch this, or your phone's not working, or you just don't want to take part in this poetic survey. You can just sit back and watch it all unfold. I'm hoping that it will be something interesting to behold. Okay, so we are going to get started with the first survey task. So you should have on your screen the first question I'll ask. What are the top reasons you use your phone to go online? So send through your answers and I'll give you some time. So if you didn't get a chance to catch the original details, the link and the code are at the top of the screen. So in a moment, we will see some words appear and you'll get to read what people share. Aha, okay, we've got Twitter and eBay, great contributions. Instagram, books, very cool word distribution. Also, word chums and book shopping, insightful responses so far. It looks like talking to loved ones is a common response. Might be why it's so large. Just a moment or two for any more thoughts. Buy stuff, Discord, yeah, restriction changes. I'm amazed with these responses that we've got. It's very cool to see this action research appear on my screen. I look forward to comparing this to my original data from 2019. Huh? WhatsApp funny things, weather check, weather forecast, election results, news updates. Okay, we are now going to move on to question number 2. I'm very excited to see what you will send through. What are you most looking forward to in the days and months ahead? So pop through your responses and we'll see what you've said. Oh, hugs, a cuddle, great way to begin. Coffee with friends, camper van trips. Oh, great words coming in. Museums, seeing friends, lots of hope in these posts. Road trips, an end to the pandemic. Yeah, food with friends. Camping and hugs are the most common responses, which is why they're in such large font. Seaside, visiting grandkids, poetry events. Oh, it's so clear that these words show that we want things that connect us in the days and weeks to come. And while what's ahead will be challenging for some as we process the impact of what we're all going through, all I can say now is how grateful I am to you for using your device to respond and reflect with compassion and care so that we could all connect. Oh, thank you so much for doing that live mini survey with me. I mean, despite our digital distance, I feel really, really connected with you. I connected recently on WhatsApp with a dear friend of mine called Erin. And Erin is, she lives in Winnipeg in Canada, where I'm from. But Erin is originally from a northern Canadian mining town called Flin Flon, which I promise you is a real place. You can look it up. And I used to go to Flin Flon with Erin, and we'd go and visit her parents, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And I had the great privilege of meeting her granny, Noreen, who was this tiny woman with an enormous heart that could just hold the world. And these pearls of wisdom would just pour from her lips. She would say the most amazing things like, kindness is within our power, even when fondness is not. I love that. Kindness is within our power, even when fondness is not. And she would also say, what you look for, you will see. And I know Erin's granny isn't the first person to have like coined these phrases, but when her granny would say them, it was like all of the bells of truth would ring. What you look for, you will see. And now that I start to look for them, I start to see so many ways that mobile technology makes compassion and empathy more possible. Like the fact that you're all now tuning in from all over the place, even internationally. Like it would be almost impossible for us all to be in the same room. But here we are. Zoom has become the great geographic equalizer. And you can tune into an event from anywhere in the world, a live event, just through a device in your hand. And these video meetings and events mean that people with mobility issues don't have to worry about whether a venue has wheelchair access. And automated captioning is becoming so much more common. My mom, who is watching, recently discovered live speech-to-text transcription apps. And they've literally been a game changer for her. My mom is bilaterally deaf, and she has superhero abilities in being able to speech read, but she needs to be able to see people's full faces. And masks have made that impossible. So if she's talking to someone who's wearing a mask, they might as well be on mute. But with a live transcribe app, she can hold her phone up to people's masked faces on the bus, at the bank, getting her vaccine, and she can read what they say in real time on her phone. The difference that this makes, the seeds of empathy that this plants because of her phone. Oh, phone, how our relationship has changed. Dear phone, I wrote a show about you in 2019 that explored tech addiction and empathy. I reminisced about our journey since the time in 2014 when we first met. I also berated you for your irresponsible ways, and yet I can't deny that I also now feel pretty grateful for the ways that you helped me deal with the lockdowns, months and weeks and days, you've actually been kind of a blessing in a bunch of ways. However, this is more than just an ego-boosting thank you letter. I'm saying this as a challenge to us to do better. I can't deny you've brought me connection and joy, and yet I still worry about how bad your bad stuff could get. You're kind of like a 21st century cigarette. I wonder if we will start seeing you on par with cigarettes as harming health and well-being. I mean, unlike cigarettes, you're not going to give me lung cancer, but we need to change course so that you can become a more benevolent force, because I'm not going to stop using you and you're not going anywhere. So we need to build a more compassionate user care. You have so many amazing functions that are good. So let's figure out the humane things that we could achieve. I believe this might be kind of a good place to start to wrap things up. I mean, thanks for tuning in to my retraction or revision or confession about what I got wrong. It's like I needed to lay out all of the crap that I've been carrying in my mind and in my case, and just look at it and figure out what I got wrong and start to cultivate new soil, grow some new ideas. I can't remember if it was Buddha or Thich Nhat Hanh or Goldie Hawn who said, "A lotus grows in the mud." So here's hoping that good might start to grow from some of the mud that we've been in. Page. The page is still awful, and the world is still spinning, and admitting mistakes isn't the end of the world. Saying, look, I messed up, I'm sorry, and let's try and move forward from here. Maybe this is an approach that more of us could use. Maybe there are a few world leaders who could take this on board. Maybe my ukulele could help with this. Some countries have really messed things up. Just look at the UK. A catalogue of poor decisions have been on display. Shaking hands on COVID wards, not wearing their masks, creating an ineffective track and trace app, overlooking cronies who broke the lockdown rules, taking way too long to decide to close the schools, ignoring early data, choosing to drag their heels, messing up provision of free school meals, restricting rights to protest, working to distort truths about racism in their race report, and on their list of blunders is in fact quite long. The decent thing that they could do is admit what they got wrong. I mean, okay, last year did not go the way we planned, but let's take a stand. With care and technology, let's cultivate empathy. Be brave, admit what we got wrong, then maybe we can better get along. Thanks, everybody. That's it. That's it from me. Just in finishing, I just want to thank you very much for navigating your own Zoom fatigue and being part of this evening's sharing. I also want to say a huge thank you to Charlie and the Saboteur Awards Festival for having me as part of the program. There's loads of great stuff still happening this week, so do check it out. I'm also running a writing workshop on Saturday called Have a Kind Word with Yourself. There might be a couple of spots left on that, and it's free to book, so tune in if you can. I do want to say a big thanks to Ella Gainsborough, Kieran King, and Rod Tame, who were very helpful as I tried to workshop this new version over the past few weeks. But yes, thank you so very much. I'll ask Charlie maybe to hop on. I don't know